Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Digital Front Door. I'm Scott Benedict. Today, we're going to dive into a topic that sits at the crossroads of creativity, commerce, and customer experience. And it's about packaging and display at retail in the omnichannel era. When it's done right, packaging isn't just about protecting a product or promoting a product. It sells it, it tells its story, and it builds trust with the consumer from shelf to screen. Today, I'm joined in discussion of this evolution by my good friend Matt Woolley, who's the founder and CEO of Designsteins here in Northwest Arkansas. Designsteins is an omnichannel packaging and display firm. And Matt and his team have really built a business around one simple but powerful mission: to help sell more product, which we all want to do that in retailing. They do that by combining branding and packaging and engineering and video capabilities and photography all under one roof, serving suppliers and retailers across mass retail, club, and e-commerce channels. Matt's also someone I've had the privilege of speaking with before when I was a guest on the Matt Woolley podcast here, and we were sitting on opposite sides of the table and had a different graphic up on the screen. So we're going to kind of flip the mic today and hear from him about how Designsteins is helping brands meet the demands of modern omnichannel retail. And Matt, welcome to the program. And this is a little surreal.
It is.
For us to be on opposite sides.
That's all right.
I was kidding before we started the show that we were on your podcast, we were talking about me, and that's not that interesting of a subject. Today we're going to talk about omnichannel retail and what you and the team at Designsteins are doing. So that's going to be a much more interesting topic, I suspect.
Well, number one, thank you for having me on. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. Thank you for having me. And then number two, I'm going to disagree with you because I found the podcast quite interesting. I hate that we couldn't speak longer because I think we had a lot more to dive into. But as usual, there's only so much you can cover in an hour, and nobody's Joe Rogan, so we don't get the liberty of 3.5 hours to do it.
Well, we could, but
not for now.
Nobody we can watch. After about the first hour.
That's true.
I wanted to kind of start with the origin story of the company and how did you kind of evolve from what I understand was just a creative design firm into really someone that's at the epicenter of helping brands go to market in the omnichannel era. Packaging ties into digital platforms a lot more today than it does, and a lot of the work that you do has nothing to do with packaging. It's digital elements.
Cover the whole thing.
So kind of what's the origin story, and maybe what were some of the pivotal moments through the history of the company that led from where you started to where you are today?
So it all started in March of 1983. No, I'm just kidding. So
that's a while back.
Yeah, a while back. So the here is the quick story, if I can make it one. So as far as I am concerned, I've always had an art background, but I was accepted to art school, didn't go because at the time it was either nothing wrong with it. You're going to either be an art teacher or starving. And so,
one of those was even
did, right. And so I chose a banking career. So I was in banking, and I was real blessed. I kind of rose the ranks for a young guy, and woke up one day and realized that the dream had become a nightmare. And so I decided that I wanted to change, my trajectory, if you will, and it's a total God thing, really. But I decided I was gonna try to find something that could incorporate business and art. And so I went to work for a company that's still around, owned by Dave and Paula Rutan, a company called Parachuting Penguins. And so they're kind of the OGs. And I worked there for a short time, and I think they had a great business, just didn't agree with some of the, leadership thought processes on things, and that happens. No slant to them. They run a good, solid business, and they're still doing it. But while I was there, I met a guy named Jesse Jacobs. And so Jesse was true artist, great guy, and we just kind of hit it off. We became friends. And while I was kind of learning a little bit of the ropes of retail, just a little bit. He was a little bit more seasoned, and I've always had like other things I've done. I can't sit still. Like I'm always moving. And so I did stuff like music promotion and just all kinds of different things. And so I started involving him on some of the music promotion stuff. And lo and behold, you guessed it, when stuff starts looking a lot better and you combine great ideas with beauty.
Attractive.
Yeah. It becomes attractive. So that little business I was doing rather well. And I was like, I made the joke to him one day. I said, me and you ought to go into business together. And I had since left parachuting just because of the differences. Again, no slander to them. And I was doing a bunch of other things. And he, out of the blue one day, I get a phone call on a Sunday afternoon right after church, and it's Jesse. He normally doesn't call me on the weekend. He's like, let's do it, man. I was like, let's do what? And he goes, let's go into business together. And I just remember sitting there, just that awkward silence. I was like, are you for real? And he goes, yeah. He said, let's get Frog in Jump. And instinctively, I just said, okay, let's do it. And so within a few weeks, we were a legal business and up and running, and had no idea. I understood from the banking perspective where that is one thing I'm blessed, and I can see my journey with my personal journey as well as the journey of Designsteins. I can see where one thing led to another. And the takeaway with me was I saw how successful businesses operated in the banking part of things. I was more operations based, but I did help with the lending space quite a bit. So I got to see both sides of it, and you could see what successful businesses were doing and what they poured into it. And so that kind of gave me insight as to looking for people to approach. And that was our start. You got to crawl before you can walk.
Yes.
And so we just didn't jump into supplier land. We started helping small businesses around town, some of which I'm proud to say are still operational and doing well. But we, just like any product, we do a deep dive like, hey, where are you lacking here? What do you want more of? How do you just really had to, we weren't just showing up to try to get a check. We were trying to make a difference. Now, don't get me wrong, we really wanted that check.
Yes.
And we really needed that
it's
check.
Nice to be able to pay the light bill, right?
Yeah. But, we always had that, what I call the appropriate ambition. And so, we would do a deep dive and to try to figure out what's going to help them and effective ways in small businesses too. And I can see again in our journey how this helped us much later when we're dealing with retailers like Walmart. Every cent counts. And so you had to try to figure out what's going to give the most bang for your buck. And so the reality is guerrilla marketing is where it's at for the small business. You got to think big and go different and try to be as economical as possible. And so the first, I'd say probably 2.5 years, that was our focus. And we did anything and everything from business cards to websites to flyers to billboard stuff. That kind of thing. And had some reasonable success. And then it was kind of a weird thing. Designsteins has been like 3 or 4 different businesses. It just evolved, and we're almost at 17 years. So praise God for that. But out of nowhere, we started making some moves. And when you start doing good for people, the best marketing happens. It's not a billboard. It's not a Facebook ad. It's word of mouth.
Yep.
And so people start saying, maybe you ought to look at these guys. Maybe you ought to talk to these guys. And so, we'd come in the door and, no was never in our vocabulary. We always had to, let's just figure it out. And so weirdly enough, all around the same period was our next evolution. And what it turned into was us being on retainer as, the behind the scenes guys, guys that were faking that they had a marketing team doing all the stuff, like they had all that
really
in-house. Yeah, it was just us. And that was part of our problem too, because a lot of people still today are like, man, you guys have been around for almost 17 years, I haven't heard of you. And that's just because the first 10 years of our business, we didn't advertise.
We were flying below the radar.
We were, and doing good at it. But we were working for, and it was a ton of experience all at once. And I don't know, because you're talking about at the time I was in my mid to late 20s. Mm-hmm. So I had a little bit more energy than I have now. And I look at all that we did. We were working for a fishing company, and that ended up we rose the ranks with them, and they turned into the category lead because of both of our work together. At the same time, we were working for, and that was dealing with packaging. So like a high percentage of the stuff we saw at Walmart at the time was coming all through our hands, like photography, the packaging, the whole 9 yards. I mean, it was all us. And then at the same time, we were working for a firearms company who had just kind of decided they were going to invest in themselves and wanted to kind of broaden their horizons. And so we were helping those guys, which is a totally different, industry. If you've ever been familiar with firearms, it's crazy, and different demographic. Yeah. And nothing wrong with it, just different. And then at the same time, we were also working for a company that was making headway with Walmart, basically a toy company. Mm-hmm. And they were the guys that, what would happen is like Mattel would have this cool innovation, but they'd want a little bit too much money for it. Yeah. And so Walmart and other suppliers would come and say, hey, we love what Mattel's doing over here. Mm-hmm. Can you guys figure out this water table? How do we make this water table cool and also a little less costly, and looking for those efficiencies? So we were literally dealing at one time, we were dealing with seafood, which is all the Asian countries. We were dealing with firearms manufacturing, both in the United States and like Turkey. Yes. And then we were dealing with like China and locally with like toys, and having to work between all of them. So you want to talk about a learning lesson, dude. I mean, our heads were going to explode. Yeah. But it was such an exciting time for us, and that was the segue into what would become our story, because we were basically. Now, we had successes. I mean, some of them are still today. Some of them I still get aggravated because I see them at Christmas. I'm like, that was our idea. But we had some great successes by the grace of the good Lord. We had great successes. But we were also, the beauty of it is we were being paid to learn. It was it was the school of hard knocks. Yeah. And so, yeah. And that was like the second phase of us. And then it was at that point when we were like, wait a minute, because we were going head to head with people that were like, real large agencies, like the Geometries or the Arcs or the VMLs, and which we're friends with all of them. Don't get me wrong, it ain't nothing like that. But I mean, whenever you're going head, our team, which was drastically smaller at the time, going head to head with ideation with these guys, I mean, we had to stay on our toes. We couldn't give an inch, and we had to think. And the entire time, we were thinking economically, like, how can we achieve? Again, it goes back to that guerrilla thing. Yeah. How can we achieve the biggest bang, and and be effective? Yeah. And so that's when it started to open our eyes up to the fact that, like, we have just as much knowledge as some of these other guys. Why aren't we? Let's really put ourselves out.
Let's strive for a higher level.
Yeah, and so that's
the reason why we can't do it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Well, and then again, it goes back to that thing too. I tell people all the time, is like, we're all blessed with gifts. You have different gifts than I do, but you work together with other gifted people, you can create some really awesome, Yeah. And rising tide lifts all boats. And so that's the way we've always viewed our partnerships too. It's like, like we're in this together. It's not just you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, there's some people, and I'm not getting on one of my tangents, I promise. But it's one of those things too, where, some people are just there. And that's okay if that's their style of business. I mean, they're in it for that hot win, and then they're gone. We've just never been those guys.
No, and I think that's part of what I would attribute your success to is being in it for the long haul and learning and refining your approach over time. I think is whether what I did is as a retail merchant, what you guys do. There's a recurring theme there. Is you don't get ahead by staying the same.
Bingo.
You have to keep evolving, right?
Complacency is poison.
Indeed, particularly at the pace that retail's going. And it's interesting because your tagline for the company is we help sell more product, or we help sell more product, which is bold, powerful, and wonderfully concise and to the point.
Yeah.
and I'm just curious, in practice, what does that mean? In other words, how do you measure a success in some of the projects that you do from a packaging or display or engineering or content maybe that you create for your clients? How do you measure a success beyond just, well, we sold more of that? That's probably part of it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But it's how did we do it maybe, or did we do it more efficiently or faster? How do you guys think about that?
Man, that's that one has many layers. So let me say this. It all started back in March of no, I'm just kidding. So that is a fantastic question. So ultimately, if you want to just bottom line it, I mean, it's about the numbers. Yeah. Everybody likes the numbers, right? Everybody wants a win. Everybody wants to feel successful. Everyone wants to keep the company wheels going. So that's a big one. How do we measure it? Well, yeah, it's that data that says this was a success. It's the data that says, everybody, was, happy with the numbers. They made the numbers. Everybody continued to live another day in business. But it's the delivery of the display. Yeah. It was, the execution was good. It's the, you guys made this so easy for us. Those are big ones for us. Now as far as selfishly is concerned, that's our client. We want our clients to be as comfortable as possible, to feel like we know what we're doing and handling it just as well. They have confidence in us, and ultimately it does what we set out to do. But from the selfish side of it now, our team thrives in innovation and beauty. We truly are. This isn't just a sales pitch. For those of you that are listening, those that know me know I'm telling the truth. But for those that don't that are listening, there's nothing greater than seeing your product on shelf and then hearing that it's such a great product. One that comes to mind like right now was there's a company called Flora Foods. They do a bunch of different things. Shout out to Flora Foods. But they had a great idea for a Little Debbie Christmas creamer. Okay, and they came to us with the idea, and when they were telling us about it, under strict NDA, I can talk about it now because it's on the shelf. By the way, go try it; it's real good. But when they're telling us about it, and I know you're the same way. Mm-hmm. Whenever you're in it or not, you get that phone call. They're talking about the product, and your first reaction is, "Holy smoke, this is going to kill it. Everybody's going to win because this is a great idea." That's a success right there. That's one of the joys that we get is working with people on innovations. They just don't know how to bring it to life. And then mm-hmm. to work with an iconic brand such as Little Debbie, I can attribute at least 10 pounds that I don't need to have on me thanks to their delicious treats. And then see it hit shelf.
So is it fair to say that it's you can sit there, once it's out there, it's on the shelf and it's in retail, and hey, we've achieved the sales. It's great to achieve the sales, but man, we achieved our potential. In other words,
correct.
We're not sitting there thinking, well, if we'd done this differently or that differently, we could have sold even more. It's like you can sit there and go, man, we are we're selling up to our potential.
Yes.
And we feel like we did everything that we did contributed to that success.
Yes.
Is that kind of how you think about it?
We gave it our best effort. And, let me also say this too, and people that care about their jobs, and, this is something nobody asked for this wisdom nugget, but I'm going to throw it out there.
We'll take it.
Yeah. We have to be careful about being too critical of ourselves. Because I'm telling you, once the bread is baked, there's always that one little lump in there that's keeping the loaf from looking perfect. Every project I've learned is that way. But as long as you learn from it and you know that you did your best and it was a successful thing, exactly. That's such a win. Yeah. And it's so exciting. But it's the process too, because I know you know what I'm talking about. You've been in this business for a minute. Nobody sees it when it's on shelf, Scott. Nobody sees those painstaking late night hours that you and the team were talking about this one detail. But when that one detail creates such a ripple effect that had such a positive outcome, you're like, it's a gorgeous thing.
Some wise person said retail is detail, and they apparently really knew what they were talking about
100%.
when she said it, right?
100%. It is. It really is. So that's success to us. The process, and I'll take it a step further too, is, and I'm getting a little sentimental in doing this, but it's truth. The relationships you build. I'm a very relational guy. I love people. I love working with people. I love thinking through stuff with people. And, when you're in the trenches together trying to figure something out.
Yeah, there's bonds that get built.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And that's a win for us too.
Absolutely. So I want to kind of dive into the omnichannel elements of what you and the team do. And it feels like there's still a lot of brands, a lot of brokers, a lot of sales teams that still think of packaging in the context of store-only function. And I'm curious, based on what you and the team are seeing, what's the biggest mistakes maybe that you see or that some of the client teams that you work with ignore about how packaging performs online, whether that's referring back to a digital experience or it ties the digital and the in-store experience together? Are there any kind of blind spots or watch outs that you would give potential clients based on what you and the team have learned about how physical, retail, and digital kind of through packaging, through design, the creative elements kind of work together? What do you think?
So here's what I see. I see the people that are winning at retail are the guys that truly understand both sides. I know this is going to sound vague, but just hear me out. We'll go there. That see both sides of it and the importance of it working together in programs. I will say that I see one or two problems. I see guys that are kind of like old school, like they're not willing to change.
Yes.
They've been trained this way, or they've done this way for 30 years.
Been successful at this.
Why? If it ain't broke, that's not going to work for much longer. That's my horrible Reagan impression.
Yes. I picked right up on that. Yeah. I was alive back then.
Hey, I was too, mister. He's a great president. Yeah. Anyway, so, that's my opinion. But anyways, and a decent actor. Sorry. All right, back to the story. When you're stuck in that, again, it's a complacency thing or it's an uncomfortable. That's really what it is. It's being uncomfortable, not willing to look into the other side of that fence there. Or I'm seeing extremes, especially with younger guys that are thinking, they understand the importance of, a little bit of the importance of on shelf, but they're thinking, man, digital is the way on everything. It's cheaper, it's more effective, it's, there's less hands and that kind of stuff. And it's dangerous because you have to have both. Now, I think everybody knows that, but nobody wants to play by those rules.
Well, it's emerging, but some of us believe that the two things work together. It's not
Yes.
either or.
Yeah.
And part of how it manifests itself is that digital experience in a store experience with a product kind of work together. And that's
100%.
what I found intriguing about what some of the things that you guys do is that you cause those
Yes.
interconnections to happen because that's the way the consumer wants to
120%.
shop, right?
Whenever we're thinking something through, whenever we're thinking any type of product through, and again, we jump in all the areas. I mean, we do help with branding, packaging, the displays, the engineering of it, the fabrication of it. We also help with the video and photography pieces of it. Yeah. We do all of it. And the reason why our we're blessed that our saw is always sharp is because we're asked to jump in between all of those, between teams a lot of times. So all that to say is that, for instance, like we had, this is, I'm not going to name names, but we had a recent one where gorgeous packaging, and we helped kind of refine it, and we thought, this is great. And I still also, let me say, in defense of in-store, I love both.
Yeah.
But let's touch this, let's feel this, let's hold this, let's put it up to our face. I'm that guy. I love store walks. Yeah. You hear me?
Yeah.
The next time you want to go, let's go. I love it.
That's going to be a whole nother episode.
Yeah, let's do it. But nothing's ever going to replace that in my mind. But here's the problem. When you have that great looking package and it's sitting there on the shelf, you still have that same great looking package online. But then you'll see instances where you have to go the extra mile online. Because when you're there, you can impulse buy that thing. I'm the worst impulse buyer too. I'm a sucker for my own,
we former buyers love people like you, so that's wonderful.
I'm a sucker for the impulse buy. Yeah. But online, it takes a little more finesse and a little more story.
Yeah, because you can tell more of a story
and
online.
You need to.
Yes.
And
so, really unlock the medium,
right,
if you will.
And so we'll see people that the box says a decent story, but then you're looking for that, hey, let's make something up. Let's say it's a football. Let's say you're selling a football, right? Okay, well, that looks great. Mm-hmm. All right, I'm here to buy a football in store. This is wonderful. This fits it in basket. It's gone. Yeah. Online, you've got like 80 options, and you're not going past page one most cases.
Yes.
But you've got all these options. Well, what's going to help tell the story? Well, I see these guys have a product, and again, this is just an example, but all of a sudden it's a 360 of the football. Wow, that's exciting. Well, why don't we talk about what it's made of? Right. Let's have a Dyson video that dissects what it, the thing of it. Or let's hit on the emotional experience of father and son throwing the football.
Indeed.
Or the texture or the color. I mean, let's talk about something. But whenever I get to these item pages and I'm like, man, this is boring. This is not making any type of, this is no storytelling. And that's the problem, is you see people that, because it's successful here, think it's successful over here, and they miss the complete point, and they lose sales. It still does good for the most part, in a lot of cases. It still does decent, but it could do better.
You never know if it's
invest in
potential,
this.
Right?
Yes, and everybody's been talking about this for years, but it is true.
Yes.
Like it's like I don't know how many mountaintops we have to scream this from, but yet still people are catching up to it.
Oh yes.
And I also see the two. This is another one you didn't ask about, but we'll get off into it. But I will tell you, this is where these emerging brands are kicking butt and taking names.
It's absolutely the case. I think we live in a time where, because of omnichannel, because of digital experiences, an upstart brand can tell its story and build its brand in ways that, when it was just fighting for shelf space, it was hard to be successful. Mm-hmm. It's maybe a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. And in some cases, upstart brands don't have the layers of decision making, the layers
100%.
of
Red tape.
They just go, let's try it, and if it works, great. If
We
not,
got a
well,
TikTok channel. Let's throw it up there and see what it does.
Yeah.
What do we got to lose?
Well, and that reminds me that this concept of speed is one that I think is big. It's big in retail overall. My suspicion is it's pretty big in your business. And I know
100%.
you guys do a lot of things like 3D product modeling and prototyping, and you do photography and a lot of these things. And it feels like one of the important integration points for a brand who would be a client of yours to have in the here and now is speed to market, but still doing it cost effectively, and that the store experience and the online experience work together to tell the story of the product to a consumer. And so I'm curious, am I thinking about that the right way, that all those, that you don't really get to give up on one of those? All those are important to
100%.
the brands that you work with.
We 100%. The biggest I can't say it. The biggest differentiator. Differentiator.
Yes.
I can be taught, Scott. Here's the things that I'm seeing. So we work in a lot of cases. So Designsteins clientele is divided between two people, and there's two sections of this industry, and there's no, this isn't some secret. But we work as the B team for a lot of big guys that need that speed to market that they don't get. They got so much red tape that they don't have. The buyer doesn't want to wait 9 months, and so they need somebody to step in. And then at the same time, we also deal with a lot of emerging brands, whether it's through them directly or through a broker or whatever it may be, whoever comes to us. We don't discriminate as long as the money makes sense for both of us.
Yeah.
But here's what I'll say. When I say, and I think it's great. Now the big boys don't like hearing this, but I think it's great for us consumers. Because what I'm seeing is like whenever that option's not there for the big guys to compete, if Walmart, for example, Walmart says, "Hey, we really need to innovate this category. We need to get moving on this." The last thing Walmart wants to hear is,
it's going to take a couple years.
Give us, or give us 9 months. We'll get back to you with a proposal. No, you want it while it's hot. And I've said for years. That if you want to, when Walmart says jump, you ask how high, you go 2 feet higher and 2 days sooner, and that's how you win. It's as simple as that. And you apply that to any of the big box boys or any retailer for that matter. We cut our teeth working with Walmart, Scott. That's how we operate. That's how you have to operate. You got to get it strike while the iron's hot. And when these big guys push back and say, in the old days they could push back and say, no, we're going to need some time to innovate on it. But whenever you've got the accessibility, just like we were talking about, of 30 other companies that has been hounding this buyer for a year, please just give us a chance. You can bet your butt they're locked and loaded and ready to roll. They're going to invest in it, and they're going to move 5 times as fast. So what ends up happening, and we're seeing this across every retail, not just Walmart, we're seeing these guys, the big boys, saying, we need a little bit more time. And it's not because they're necessarily doing wrong. They're just structure's gigantic. They're saying, give us some time. And they got this guy here just jumping and screaming, please, And so the buyer says, all right, I really want innovation now, because everybody moves at the speed of light now.
Speed of retail is different.
Yes. Let's give them a chance. And so they give them a chance, and they give it everything they've got, because you know what? They're relying on that. Yeah. If they make one misstep, it could cost them their company. And so what ends up happening, though, when they're successful, the big guys say, how do we lose that SKU? It's because of that speed and that passion. And then 2 years later, they're like, how do we lose those 4 SKUs? It's because of that speed and that passion. And we're seeing that across the board. Now, don't get me wrong. The big boys are also doing a good job with innovation. I'm not slandering. But I also think, too, that there's a happy medium between the two, because it's propelling innovation. It's putting the pressure on.
Competition brings out the best, not in
100%.
retailers, but in brands.
Everything.
And companies who do what you do as well is that that motivation to get there first and do it better is always good, healthy, and generally produces the best results.
100%.
Right? So that makes sense. In addition to speed, one of the things that's started to evolve in, say, the last 10, 20 years has been sustainability, and I know it has an impact on your business because, as store operators used to tell me as a buyer, there's no display in this store, Scott, that is going to be here forever. Every display has a start date and an end date, and you need to plan for what happens to it. Which I may have overlooked.
Where is this going to go?
As a buyer. I once put a very large display into Sam's Clubs for Sony when HDTV first became a thing, and everybody loved that, and it helped drive sales.
Awesome.
And at some point, that display hit its end of life. What are we supposed to do with this, Scott? Was the question. So I know sustainability.
Hey, we're all still here, Scott.
Yes.
We all survived.
And Sam's Club has managed to stay in business despite my efforts. But I'm curious, kind of. How you and the team think about both, materials innovation, sustainability, knowing that everything you do has a life, will get replaced by something else at some point, has to find a proper end of life outcome through the lens of sustainability.
So sustainability is a sensitive subject, and it is because, number one, I will say that anything that we engineer, we always think of, again, it goes back to being, goes back to the roots. How can we achieve more with less? So there's a place for that. And that does help cut down on materials. However, the problem that we've been up against is, like, whether it's Walmart or Target or whoever it is this week, saying we really need to be thinking about the environment and the future and that kind of thing. And we're like, yes, we agree, but you have to unfortunately be ready to pay that price point. Because the problem that we see is there's people that just want that big bang. They want that beautiful look. They want that gloss. They want that high quality print. And they want everything to look glitzy and glamorous, but then they also want the packaging to be sustainable. And the science is just not there yet. I mean, there's some things that we can do. There's products out there that we can utilize, but then there becomes the other point of, and I'm just being honest here, nobody likes to talk about this stuff, but I'm shooting you straight. What we see is we're like, we want this to really be sustainable, but we don't want to pay for it to be sustainable. And so at that point, you have to make a decision. What's more important? And, I'm not going to go there, but I can give you a good, idea of where it usually ends up. And now, here's the positive. There is a middle ground. So, for instance, and I can't, there's two different departments we're working with right now in Walmart, and we're hoping that they take the bite on it. But Walmart is real big right now in sustainability and get away from plastics. And so the middle ground is this. It's like, okay, there's a department, and I can't get off into the details, but it's they're using a lot of plastic, okay? And it's because they're it needs plastic it needs a certain amount because it's the protection thing. So we were tasked, how do we make this more sustainable? So did we take away plastic completely? No. But we used as minimal as possible and tried to supplement that with more biodegradable things of a better corrugate with, things of that nature. And that's usually where the win is is it's not, everybody wants to say, oh, this is completely sustainable. No, nothing is that way.
It's one of those where sustainability, and I was with the company when we started that journey 20 years ago. Lee Scott gave us that challenge, and it was one of those where everything was not figured out on day one.
Right.
The drive to innovate caused, we went from incandescent light bulbs to the CCFL that had mercury in them to now LEDs. That took time in lighting. It takes time in packaging.
Yes.
It takes time, and challenging people, I think, is where what I love what you guys do is that, yeah, you're going to execute this project today the best you can, but then there's the idea that I know you guys get that says, okay, I'm going to challenge my suppliers back to say, hey, I'm getting pushed on this by Walmart and Walmart's suppliers and other retailers, and think about how you can come up with a plastic that biodegrades or something like that. That challenging people back is how the innovation happens over time.
And the beauty of that innovation, when you're trying to innovate, like other things get unintentionally innovated.
Yeah.
Like,
inventions have been accidents.
Right. Well, this one I'm speaking of right here, like no joke, in making some of these changes, and and again, I wish I could go into the details because I'm being real vague right now, but it's going to actually help add more product to the category and help it to display better.
Yeah.
So we consider that a huge win, because not only did we, help with sustainability, but while we were doing it, we figured out a better way to do it, more efficient way to do it, and there's going to be a better allowance for more product. And the company that we're helping, guess what? Walmart's going to be like, great job, glad you guys knocked this out of the park. Here's your reward. Let's buy some more product from me. Everybody wins.
Well, and to that concept of innovation, look ahead to the degree that you can. Obviously, the future is coming at us at a pretty high rate of speed. What do you think kind of separates the leaders from the followers in the space that you guys work in, and as you maybe collaborate with brands and with retailers like Walmart? Any thoughts about kind of where's the future headed on this, and where do some of the big innovations come from potentially?
Honestly, it's a combination of all the things we've already talked about today. It's people that take into account the importance of storytelling, while taking into account the beauty of a packaging, but understanding that story translates over here to digital, and then finding innovative ways. Again, the guerrilla marketing thing, thinking outside the box, like, can we do something more than an IRC to drive sales? And it's also intermingling which we didn't really touch on a lot today, but like the social media aspect too. The draw of all of that. There's some really great brands out there right now that the reason why they're firing on all cylinders, and quite honestly, some of them don't have that. It's not that innovative of a product. It's not. Right. But it's because they've done a good job with their story. They have a reason. They've done a good job with their beauty, and they're telling it on every channel that they can. That's it. And so when the consumer sees it digitally, they think, man, this looks interesting. I want to know more. They may not buy it then. But then when they see it in store and they pick it up and they, wow, this is gorgeous. I love this. I remember these guys. All right. And then you have a fan
to kind of tell the story across all
everything.
Touch points is really
that's it.
What you're saying is that you can't rely upon any one. Because I recall the day where packaging on the shelf was the whole ball game, and then part of why you guys do what you do is there's several touch points and or a product has with a consumer. You got to be ready to tell your story on all of them.
And right? you have to critically think through and assess every channel. It's not just a matter of like, okay, we're competing here in this, because I see it. I do see this, and we try to advise against it, but you see people that they're just worried about that, 4 feet of shelf space, and they think, okay, well, we got digital covered on Walmart.com, but they've got nothing going on socially.
It's no longer a check the box.
They don't everybody. You have to understand the story from the eyes of the consumer on every channel. Those are the guys that are smoking it right now. And it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is, because now instead of having to think about how a consumer interacts in one channel, there's multiple.
And how will they, and it's not just that, it's like, where's the starting point? So the guy digitally, where does he end up in store? Where does he end up on TikTok? Or the guy on TikTok, where does he end up in the store and then end up, you're saying, like, there's this, you have to think, through a lot. But what an exciting time.
It is, because there's more ways to interact with the consumer than just the package on the shelf, just the product.
The possibilities.
So the possibilities exactly are there. And that kind of leads me to this last question I wanted to pose to you, which is that I got to think, when you get a new client, there's some advice that you have to give them to kind of set them straight on. This is what it takes to be successful at Walmart, at Sam's, at other retailers, and you're going to need to do these things. Is there any kind of recurring advice that maybe you give clients?
Yeah, whenever sometimes we're just in full transparency, we're just, we're told to put a hotel on the moon, like,
And
you
yes,
just do
sir,
it. Yes,
here's the invoice.
Aye. Yeah, no problem.
That happens.
Yeah, but again, it goes back to some of the greats. I always encourage people in marketing. Now, these powers can be used for good and evil, but you look back to the greats of the Ogilvies or the Edward Bernays of the world, and there's a whole host of others through the years, but it's all about a storytelling, and also the assumption that just because you've been great, that you will continue to be great. Humility is really the core of that.
Yes.
And so I think that I can say, as far as giving advice, I have to be careful because, but I'm transparent as a window pane when asked. But don't get stagnant water is going to attract
bugs.
And so continue to evolve, be open-minded, listen to those around you. It's the principles that drive our everyday interactions, really. And I see when companies are open to, because there's some people will ask our advice and will say, well, we think this is critically wrong and you're making a big mistake here, and here's why. Yeah. And they don't listen. Yeah. Ultimately, I tell them, you're the boss, so we're going to do what you say. But I want to make it clear,
here's what we think.
Right. And we're not yes men. We're not here just to cash checks. But ultimately, aye, Captain. And so, just be the things that we is your story really being told the right way? And one of the big ones that we see all the time is a great book. I'm going to throw this one out there too. I don't get any money for this, which I should, because I know that I've bought like 10 copies for people and I've recommended it 1,000,000 times. It was written by the guys that had founded Politico. Yeah. Okay, it's called Smart Brevity, and
yes. I actually read that.
It's a great book.
Yes,
and it's straight to the point.
Yeah,
and so and that application to everything has its place, because again, there's a company we're working with right now, and they're dealing with Walmart Connect, and they're trying to get some upticks, and they were it's an innovative product. Again, I can't go off into it because they haven't released it yet. But they want to start telling every last detail on their packaging and every last detail in their, it's like, look, dude, we're just trying to get them to your landing page. So if I had to tell you today, if I had to explain to you in 2 sentences why you need this product and how it's going to change everything, or what is that emotional draw? That's what so many people overlook. It's that smart brevity. What is that emotional draw? What is the reality of this product? Just simple, straightforward. And when you do that, you find success. But it's whenever you start cluttering it with like how I talk, and I just keep going on and on and on and on and on and on. That's when you lose people.
Yeah.
So I have to give advice to myself and to our clients. Hey, just shut up and say the basic things.
So I was telling somebody the other day that I had an early manager in my career who said, "You're selling the sizzle, not the steak."
Bingo.
You're selling what the product does for you, not the specs of the product. This happened to be consumer electronics, but it applies across categories. So very aligned to your point. One of the last things I was going to ask you is kind of what's next? Where are you and the team going? Where maybe some of the innovations you see coming down the road, or things that you guys want to work on going forward?
Okay, so again, this is gonna come on. People listen to this like, this guy is vague on everything, but I swear there's so much I can't tell. In retail, that is the dilemma that is retail.
Yes.
Because like there's so many exciting things that you're a part of, but you can't talk about it for a year.
Yes.
And that sucks.
Okay. So that means what? Have you back on?
Yes, please. In a year, have me back on. But I would tell you, we have seen gaps, we'll just say, in display execution.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're working on intertwining some of the things that we do with a way to truly expose the data behind the success of things. We'll put it that way.
That makes sense.
And I think if we continue to hammer it, we'll be able to. We've got a cool setup that I think is really going to help our display clientele to be more efficient and have transparency on both sides of both the consumer as well as if Designsteins was successful for them or not.
Awesome.
So
Well, you have to come back and tell us more.
Would love it.
When you can talk about it.
Would love it.
All right. Well, good. Well, thank you so much for joining me and for telling us the story, not only about what you and the team are doing, but how the company got started and how you've innovated. And it really is interesting, particularly from my perspective as a former buyer, because I know things appeared in front of me that probably had your fingerprints, yours and the team's all over them, and I couldn't understand how the supplier pulled that off that fast. And I suspect I know that you guys may have been involved. It's also interesting, it occurs to me kind of as you're talking that packaging really is media. It's not just something that protects the product.
100%.
It really is telling a story. Talk a little bit about innovation and speed, which any of us who have worked in retail broadly or for a particular retailer here know that that's pretty important.
100%.
And in the future, it feels like is connected. So the on-shelf presence and the digital elements work together to tell the story of the product. So, and one of the things I want to do is as folks are listening, if they want to learn more about you and Designsteins, I'm going to put a slide up on the screen right now, and it will show your website and how to not only follow your podcast, but also to follow you and the team on social media. And I love some of the posts that you have. I think that's reflective of the creative elements of the teams.
Yeah, we love to create.
Designsteins. So thank you again for coming, Matt, and have enjoyed it immensely.
Well, I appreciate this opportunity. If you want to know more about us, just check us out at designsteins.com. We're also on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
All the places.
Yeah, that's right. And well, I'd be a hypocrite if we weren't there.
In light of the guidance you give your clients.
Yeah.
It absolutely would be.
But I appreciate this opportunity. It's been great. You're such an excellent host. So thank you for having me on, Scott.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to the audience for listening. This has been The Digital Front Door. I'm Scott Benedict.